Hello and welcome to ShameOver, where you can lose the hangover, not the booze. I'm your host, Erica Mallery, and this is a podcast for those interested in moderation and drinking less, and who want to find peace and balance in their consumption. I am on this journey with you, and I am proof that you can drink less without going cold turkey or all out sober. If this sounds good to you, let's get started. Hello and welcome back to ShameOver. I'm your host, Erica Mallery, and I am so excited to be here today with a guest that has so much experience I cannot wait to learn more about. So, would you like to introduce yourself, Amanda? And thank you again so much for being here.
Of course, thanks for having me. And yes, I'd love to introduce myself. My name's Amanda Brown. I'm a mental health counselor in Denver. I have a private practice. I see people all over Colorado virtually and in Denver in person. And my specialty is working with women mostly who kind of feel like they have it all together or some of it together or look like they have it together on the outside, but their relationships in particular are really stressing them out.
Yes, absolutely. Any specific relationships or all forms of relationship?
It usually ends up being romantic relationships, but it can be any kind of relationship. It's really ends up being sort of the same parameters that we're working with within yourself, whether it's your children or your parents or your friends, but often it's your
I'm sure like with everything, it just all comes back full circle and dealing with the same stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Yeah. So I know we were able to connect through this networking thing. That's amazing. I love it. But you were able to share a little bit about your background before you started doing this. So what were you doing before this?
Yeah, how we connected, why this all makes sense. Before opening my private practice and really delving into the relationship side of things, I worked in substance abuse treatment. So I've worked in a few different treatment centers and chronic pain treatment centers. Really helping people navigate substance abuse, alcohol abuse in particular. And I've worked on the sobriety lens with helping people go through AA and also more harm reduction, like helping people figure out what works for them and slow their drinking and really manage. And what I do now in my practice, really deriving from that, is helping people navigate their relationship with alcohol and substance abuse or marijuana or alcohol in particular. Being able to look at how it's affecting those relationships and how those relationship struggles might be impacting their turning to another glass of wine.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you see all the time, just like I do, that so much of the drinking is not actually about the drinking. It's just become the solution for X, Y, and Z, but it fixes things in the moment, that it's just become the big go-to.
Absolutely. It's a coping tool. It's not a healthy one, but it is a coping tool. It does work and it works quick, not long term. And so when I work with people struggling with their alcohol consumption, it's really about finding more long-term tools to be able to use, things that'll help you and ways to deal with that lack of instant gratification. Because things like mindfulness and sitting with yourself and journaling, it doesn't give you that same quick relief, but it does help a lot more long-term.
Yes, and that can be so hard because we're so wired for that instant gratification, especially today more than ever, where, I mean, if you don't know the answer to something, you can look it up on your phone and be informed in 30 seconds or less.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're so accustomed to just getting it right away. And all of us, not just people who are struggling with alcohol use, all 100%. Of us want that instant gratification. We all have something, whether it's, shopping or gambling or watching too much TV or scrolling on Instagram. Like, we all have something that we could choose a more healthy coping tool.
100%, yes. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure, obviously, we know it varies completely based on the person, the reasonings, all those things. But have you found, when you were doing this previously, have you found one work better than the other as far as harm reduction or overall just complete sobriety?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've even done some research on it, like just trying to figure out like what is the best thing. You want to help your clients who are coming to you struggling and figure it out. And I really think, and I've seen in my practice and the research supports, that there really isn't a one better choice. Some people are really going to have that all or nothing thinking, and getting out of that is a struggle. And so choosing not to drink at all is the right choice for them. Other people, that all or nothing thinking feels like setting yourself up for failure, and thinking about a drink and having that one drink feels like, and I think we even talked about this when we first met, that relapse is like starting over. And that can be really incredibly detrimental to progress and taking steps forward. Like a diet, right? If you're on a diet and you say, I can never eat sugar again, and you eat a cupcake, like, are you going to just binge on sugar, or are you going to say, okay, I'm going to have a couple pieces of fruit and take care of my body and move on?
Yeah. Well, and two things there that I absolutely love. One, I totally agree. Moderation is not for everyone, just like, sobriety in my mind is not for everyone. But what I've seen, not only personally, but especially with so many of the people that I work with, and granted they're drawn to me because of my approach, but when it comes to, like the diet culture and everything, I know for me, if I said, I was on a diet, couldn't eat sugar, I wouldn't just have a bite of the cupcake or a bite of the sugar when I got it. It was just like, well, I'm never going to eat it again. So, and that's so detrimental. And that's where I realized, if you overeat, if you overconsume, like you're going to feel bad. You might get sick, whatever. But if you overdo it like that with alcohol, completely different story, And I'm just like, I cannot approach it the same way I've approached dieting.
Absolutely, which isn't healthy either. And that's how we tackle dieting. We tackle body image issues. When people come to me and say, all I can think about is eating another piece of chocolate, I say, okay, you need to, a good idea, you don't need to do anything, but a good idea is to give yourself a bite of chocolate every day, because you start to desensitize yourself. Your brain is in that starvation mode, that famine state of mind, where all it can think about is chocolate because you're not giving it to it. So if you can give yourself a little bit of chocolate every day, it just takes the newness away from it, the excitement away from it. And while alcohol is very different, you might not be saying, okay, I have to have a beer every night now because I'm trying to stop drinking. Or
not what we're saying at all.
Yeah, not saying that. But that recognition that if you're trying to cut down and you notice, I'm trying to go from, a bottle of wine to half a bottle of wine to start, and I had a bottle and a half last night, then there's a really different way of tackling that, of like, I give up, I'm hopeless, I'm just going to drink the rest of the second bottle. Or, okay, what happened last night? What was I struggling with? And move forward and drink some water the next day and get some movement and take care of yourself and be kind. And again, sort of notice what's going on internally.
Sure. Yeah, it sounds like our approaches are very, very, very similar, especially with just that awareness piece being upfront, with a lot of not only curiosity and understanding what's going on, but also endless love and grace and compassion for yourself.
Yes, that is all over my website. It's all over everything I say to my clients. But you cannot hate yourself into being this perfect version of yourself. You cannot hate yourself into drinking the amount that you want to drink, or having higher self-esteem or a better relationship. It does not work that way. Yeah. And the more that you try, the further away from it you get. And again, to that specialty I talked about, those women that feel like they have it together in some areas, or like maybe they're doing well in work, or the world looks at them and thinks that they're doing well. You can hate yourself into looking like you've got it together a little bit, but that's a really different experience than really being able to look in the mirror and say, I feel good about how I showed up today. I feel good about the way I treated myself, or responded to that stressor, or, took care of myself throughout this week.
Well, and you had brought up mindfulness as being a part of that, because I know that is really detrimental or instrumental, I should say, for so much of what we do. But it can be really hard getting into it, especially, people like me that have like just the monkey brain is constantly going. So how do you suggest people kind of start getting into the process and at least getting their toes in the water there?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me say that I have been preaching mindfulness and meditation for years. And it wasn't until I got pregnant that I was like, okay, I am going to really try to mitigate my risk for postpartum mental illnesses.
Yes,
so meditation was like the one thing that I knew I could do to take care of myself. And like, to anyone out there who has struggled with postpartum mental illness. It's not your fault. There's nothing that you can do to change it. But it just was this one little piece of control that I felt like I could have. And I meditated every day for my whole pregnancy and then the first year of my daughter's life. And she's 18 months now. And I'm like, I haven't meditated in 3 months. So it's a process. And I think, again, coming back to that self-compassion and that kindness, it's a really big part of mindfulness all around. If you're thinking this would be helpful for me and you're one of those people with the monkey brain, or who, as soon as you sit down, for me, it's like, there's 15 things I could be doing with this time instead of sitting here quietly. And it's really hard to remember how beneficial this time is. I often recommend starting with mindfulness instead of meditation. So something like brushing your teeth and really trying to be present while you're brushing your teeth. Something that, have you ever had that experience where you're driving to work and you feel like, I don't know, I don't remember if I ran that stop sign, or like I never even saw the stop sign. Like, it's so mindless. Sometimes our brains are somewhere else. So really consciously pulling yourself into that moment, whether it's driving to work or brushing your teeth, and really noticing, coming back to that brushing your teeth example, like, what does it feel like to have the bristles on your teeth? What it feels like to taste the toothpaste, to smell the kind of mintiness that's coming up, and just engaging all of your senses, even what the toothbrush feels like in your hand, or if you use a electric one, like that vibration that's going on. It's 2 minutes. It's less than that. It's however long you brush your teeth. But it's practicing that, pulling yourself into the present and really being present and noticing, okay, brushing my teeth is boring, but I'm coming back to it. I'm noticing the smell. I'm noticing these different pieces of it. And that really helps build. That really does do the same thing as meditation for our brains, especially that beginning piece. Because you're learning that thoughts come and go and that you don't have to attach to them. And when it comes to cravings or, self-worth struggles, confidence struggles, relationship stressors, we often do feel like we need to attach to those struggles or those thoughts that we're having. And that's where issues come up, right? I'm thinking about having a glass of wine, so I have to have that glass of wine. Or I'm thinking that my boyfriend is mad at me, so he's got to be mad at me. And so that mindfulness really helps you be able to take care of yourself and start to build space for those coping tools.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I'm like, how have I not done this with my kids? Because I have a 3 and 6-year-old, and brushing our teeth is something that we fight over almost every day. I'm just like, I don't understand why this has to be a battle, because it's something that you will hopefully do twice a day for the rest of your life. But I've never made it like a fun, mindful experience, which I feel like that's the perfect thing for me to do. So I'm going to try that with them tonight. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Try it, and try it for yourself. See how different it feels to really notice the mintiness instead of just brushing as fast as you can, because it's a waste of time.
Well, and such a big piece of it, because, for me, drinking, I try to make a very mindful experience, because a lot of times it has just become habitual, and that means incredibly mindless, so you're not actually, you ask people why they drink, they're like, well, I enjoy the flavor, I enjoy this, but, once they're in it, they're like, well, yeah, I like it, but did I really taste it? Did I experience it? No. So really trying to slow down and make even drinking a very mindful experience. And the only way to do that is to experience mindfulness throughout the day, so that you can be better suited when you do sit down with your glass of wine, for example, to be able to enjoy it and experience it.
Absolutely. And something that's helpful with that too is, again, with that acceptance and that self-compassion piece, if you're trying to slow your drinking, knowing that it's okay to have this drink right now, is to even practice that mindfulness before you drink and start to get curious about why. Habit is a big piece of it, like you're talking about. It's 5:30 and I every night at 5:30 have a glass of wine. But maybe you are in a fight with your husband, or the kids have been really loud all day, and so this glass of wine helps you have a moment of silence or feel calm, or it's that alone time moment. That first sip is that moment where you get to have some quiet, some peace to yourself, and noticing that can really help you notice, what do I need and what do I think alcohol is giving me, because rarely is it actually giving you that.
Exactly. I actually have a mindful exercise, essentially like a little bit of a pre-drink meditation that goes into just that, so you can pause and check in and see why you're drinking and what you think you're going to get out of alcohol in the first place before you actually do it. Obviously just making it that much more of an intentional act. But it is just as you're saying that, like, I cannot tell you, and I probably said this 1,000 times, but so many of the women that I work with, the drink at the end of the night is not only the first time that they've made for themselves all day, but it's like the first time they've really taken a breath.
Yes, yes. And that's so common for women in our society right now. It's just, you have so much going on. You're working. If you have a family, if you don't have a family, you have a million other obligations that are going on. And I think that a lot of us feel guilty to pause and rest, like taking that break away from your work or away from your desk feels like lazy. And I think paying attention to the way that you talk to yourself around all of that is really important as well.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes that alcohol gives you the space. Like, I'm not being lazy, I'm having a drink.
Well, and it's almost the notice to yourself, your body, your brain, but also the external world, like, I'm done, I'm off the clock.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
But the more we repeat that, the more our body and our brain's like, I need it. This works very quickly. It works every time. So that's why come, 3, 4, 5 o'clock, depending on what time the witching hour is, why those thoughts are going through your brain. Like, it's time for this now.
Absolutely. And it does work. I mean, I think that's something that the more that we try to pretend it doesn't is doing a disservice to people who are noticing all the negative effects it's having. Because you do get that moment where you feel like, okay, I'm done. The problem is after that, is the fact that then the conflict with your family is getting worse, not better, or the way you feel about yourself is getting more negative, not more positive, or the way you feel about yourself is dwindling.
That 100%. And I like acknowledging it, especially how you did, because such a big piece is, especially if I'm working with people and they decide to take some time off, instead of, just like cutting back, like on the day-to-day type thing. There can be so much like white knuckling around it, but I try to make it clear, like you said, with journaling, with mindfulness, with exercise, with all these things, it's not going to do what alcohol does. So just, don't compare apples to apples. These are not apples, right? So like just making sure that you are being honest about it. Like, yes, I'm going to sit down and journal. I'm going to feel better when I do this, but am I going to feel the same as when I'm drinking alcohol? No, but that's okay. But again, I think we have to acknowledge it because it seems like so self-explanatory, but when you're in the moment, you're like, it's not working. It's not quite in the noise. It's not giving me this.
So many people have said that to me. Like, I tried journaling one time yesterday and I'll never do it again because it didn't work. I had to have my drink after that. I'm like, that makes sense. That's fair. Like, if you're looking for that same, and it's brain chemistry. Like, when you have a drink, it's giving your brain more dopamine. When you journal, you're helping process some information. You might be getting a little bit more dopamine if you're thinking about things, but it is not a drug entering into your bloodstream.
Yeah, it's not a slot machine that's like, I just won.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. So as you were in this like harm reduction world, what were some of the things that you saw, especially early on for people, that was really helpful getting started or, approaching this? Because it can feel very scary, very intimidating, very overwhelming. And, I know some of the people that you worked with probably were a lot farther along in the, sobriety is the only option, for example. So knowing that people are, were coming to you at all different stages, what were some of the things that did work really well early on approaching this whole, do I drink less? Is alcohol not for me? That type thing.
I see. Okay. So what are some things that helped them figure out which direction they wanted to go, or some things that helped them not drink as much?
Both.
Okay. Let me think. So when I worked in a treatment center that was harm reduction oriented, but to your point, it's people coming in with all different drugs, alcohol, cocaine, heroin. So the parameters of harm reduction is still there and it's still important. Like, we're not going to kick you out if you're using, but it's just helping you kind of navigate that. And I think the harm reduction component of you get to choose what this journey looks like for you, knowing the truth, right? If you drink a ton for 20 years, your liver is going to be affected by that. Your body's going to be affected by that. And knowing that component of it, knowing your health risk. But I'm not here to say you can't do that. That's not for you. really gives people agency. So then you get to pick, right? They got to come in and say, and the same thing, it's a little scarier as somebody that cares about you with heroin or something that could just work a little faster. But yeah, you still get to pick, right? Saying I can't quit because I can't say right now that I'm never going to do this again is a really big detriment to people. It keeps people kind of like looking at the doors of the detox center or staying online, looking at places or therapists that they could talk to, feeling like I'm just not ready to say that this was my last drink. And so taking that off the table and saying, okay, let's look at that component of it. Let's look at what you want your relationship to look like ideally. A lot of times it's going backwards, especially with alcohol. What did your relationship with it used to look like? Because that shifts over time. You know, we can all often look back and say, when I was in college or in my early 20s, you know, I go out with friends and drink and it made me feel alive and vibrant and social. But now when I drink, I feel like I just want to sit in my room and I don't want anyone to see me and I'm embarrassed and it's, you know, it doesn't have the same effects. And so being able to really have that transparency and honesty with yourself helps people look at what that looks like. And then again, sometimes it's how do I get back to this place where I can feel, not use alcohol to get to, but feel vibrant and alive and social again. And that doesn't always mean taking alcohol off the table and going to AA and getting rid of all of your friends because they still go out for a happy hour. Sometimes it can mean looking at that, what's missing, and I'll come back to the self-worth and the relationship with yourself piece and being able to really navigate like what fell off there, what's changed for you or what's happened over time and being able to work on that. In terms of coping tools, like some things that have really helped people just take those first steps, I'll say the same thing, like really building that awareness with yourself, looking at what you want and how things have changed. But then also starting to really pay attention to, like we've talked about, that mindfulness, journaling, going for walks outside, just starting to use some other things. I always say first, like it doesn't have to be instead of, but before you have that first drink, go for a walk. Think about what you're feeling and then have the drink, you know, no shame, don't be mad at yourself. Just give yourself that moment. Like we're just increasing the space between it to build self-awareness.
Exactly. And that I always say, fill your emotional cup before you fill your physical one. Because so much of the time when we are going for that drink, we're really trying to fill our emotional cup. And, you know, what's the quickest way to do that in our mind? Fill the physical one, you know? So that has been something very powerful. And it's crazy because I'm like, if people were to just do this one thing and fill their emotional cup before their physical one, I know most people, not everyone, but most people would see a huge, huge decrease in their drinking. And it is so simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. But 90% of people don't do it. They're like trying to do all the other things, but they don't want to do this one thing. I'm like, this is what your body's actually wanting and needing in the moment and what you're trying to tell it alcohol can do.
Absolutely. And you're right. It is so simple and it's not easy. And I think being able to look at, okay, fill my emotional cup, like where is that? What does that mean? But I can fill this physical cup and drink it. And it's, again, it comes back to that instant gratification. Yeah, like it's done. I feel better and then I feel worse. But if I fill my emotional cup, I don't feel better and then I feel better. So it's kind of sitting in that discomfort for a while too.
Yes.
Is hard.
Which I feel like it's harder now than ever because, again, in all areas of our life, we don't really have to be uncomfortable for long. Like, you know, I always joke, like, my husband and I, even on date night, when we say no phone zone, ultimately something comes up and we're trying to figure out, like, where was that or what's the answer to that? And, you know, so we'll be like, can we get out our phone just to look it up real fast? You know, but it's like we can't even be that uncomfortable to wait like 2 hours, even an hour to check our phones, mainly because we'd forget what it was. And, you know, obviously wouldn't be that important anyway.
Because it doesn't matter anyway. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. But I mean, you'll be at Target and everybody in line is on their phone, even if there's kids there or whatever. I'm just like, we can't be uncomfortable for 5 seconds.
I know. An exercise that I try to do, like I don't go to the doctor very often. I probably, you know, should go more, but for my annual checkup, just sitting in that waiting room, one of the most boring places to be. I try not to pull out my phone, you know, for too long. Sometimes you're waiting for like an hour. It's time to get it out. But just sitting in that discomfort is so challenging. And it's, if you take it on as like, I'm taking this challenge, it can be almost fun. fun is
Yeah.
a stretch, but to see how long you can sit in that boredom, to sit in that.
Oh, totally.
And there's like a low risk area to practice it, right? You're not waiting for that drink. How long can I wait? Which can feel really hard, but
Yeah.
here's a place where like, I know the doctor's going to come in eventually, or I know I'll get to the front of the line at Target eventually. So how long can I sit here and just sit with my thoughts, or sing a song in my head, or whatever it is that's not getting on your phone and scrolling and looking up every piece of information, which is exhausting and not very good for our mental health.
Exactly. I like to gamify things whenever possible. So same thing. Like you're at Target. Okay, everyone's on their phone. How many people can I find that are not on their phone right now? And I'll like do something like that. So that it's keeping me off of it, but then trying to be present with what's going on around me. And
And that goes right back to the toothbrushing example I gave before. Like that is mindfulness. And if you're not ready to jump into meditation, looking around Target and noticing how many people you see that aren't on their phone is being present in the moment. You're thinking about the people that you see around you instead of, the to-do list that has 10 things left on it and it's already 3 p.m.
That's just going to, as soon as you check it off, more things are going to fall in their place. That's how it always is. Yes. One thing I was going to ask, just mental health and, phones in general and everything. Because I'm sure that that's something that you definitely work with people on, is setting parameters or boundaries around like, phone usage or social media usage. Is that something that comes up a lot in your practice?
A lot. It is. Yeah. And I think I tackle it the same way we're talking about moderation and being able to harm reduction, which again, I used that as an example. We all have our things, right? Whether it's gambling or shopping or alcohol, it can be Instagram, it can be TikTok. And being able to say, first of all, that's something the person has to come up with on their own. Like, I'm not going to say, I might talk about how much we're using social media or how much we're scrolling, especially before bed. If you're having trouble sleeping, or you wake up in the middle of the night, or you're having a lot of nightmares, one of the first things that you can do is look at your phone usage before bed. And not just watching movies, which is also the blue light, but that constant scrolling keeps your brain active and searching. And so we put that down, and our brains don't just stop all of a sudden. Our brains are still kind of mentally scrolling, if that makes sense, and kind of processing all that information. You just watched 20 funny dog videos and like 2 sad, scary videos, right? And your brain is processing all of that and trying to make it fit together, and it impacts your sleep. It makes it really hard for your brain to shut down, which if you're struggling with your alcohol abuse or your relationships or your relationship with yourself, your brain is probably already having some trouble shutting down. That's why you started scrolling in the first place. So being able to tackle that at night, which can mean sometimes setting a timer, like I'm going to put my phone down 5 minutes before I go to bed. It doesn't have to be a whole hour, which would be amazing. But giving yourself just that little bit of space where you're not scrolling before bed can be really helpful. Some people like to there's timers you can put on your phone, like you get 10 minutes or you get 20 minutes a day on this app. That can be really helpful too. And just like everything else we're talking about, the big first step there is that you're building awareness. It's pretty easy to click continue. I'm going to keep playing on this app.
Totally.
But you're aware of it. You're starting to notice how much you're using it.
Well, and I mean, I used to have those timers on my phone, and it's so insane how fast it goes, whether it's 20 minutes or an hour. Like you can be, oh my gosh, like I literally thought I was on there for 2 minutes, One thing that's been really helpful for me, especially at night, is I set my phone to grayscale. So just setting it to grayscale when I think of it in the evening, I am on my phone drastically less the rest of the night. Yeah. And if you have an iPhone, I don't know if you have to set it up, but if you just do it 3 times, it automatically does it.
Oh, cool.
Some people that hasn't worked for, then you just need to change your settings. But it is insane how much less I pick up my phone.
Because it's just less vibrant. It's less.
Yeah, because it takes out all the blue light. So you're seeing everything grayscale, and because it's not all these vibrant colors, your brain's like, okay, next. Like it's just not as enticing.
That's so interesting. And again, just all of this habit, everything that we're talking about, right? Like habit and why we're doing it, but also the brain chemistry, how it's impacting your brain, the dopamine flood that these different things are giving you, and how that feels so good in the moment or so relaxing in the moment, but long term is causing more detriment.
Exactly. Speaking of, it feels good in the moment, but way better long term. Journaling. I feel like journaling, it's like I hear about it all the time. I've practiced myself. It is one of the hardest things I feel like to get into, like consistently
Yeah.
and keep it up consistently. Sounds like
Sure.
journaling is something that you prescribe a lot. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, journaling has so many benefits for your mental health, for whatever you're working through. It helps you build self-awareness. There's even been research that shows that it can help like strengthen your immune system, give you more T cells in your body. I was just doing research about this yesterday.
Yeah, I've read that, but I don't understand how journaling can help with your immunity. So
I know it's interesting how that happens, but I mean your brain and your body are just so connected. So the more that you're building self-awareness and finding peace, the more that your body is able to function appropriately or healthily.
yeah.
And I think that is a really small understanding of it. And then there's all the science behind it. But it's amazing how much journaling, just like meditation, when you start to dig into the research, it's not just something that your therapist says, like, I don't know what else to tell you, just do this,
Yeah.
right? There's really so much stuff so much research behind it. And journaling, again, like whether you're free writing or following prompts, just gives you space to sit and reflect on the things that you're going through, which is really different than mindlessly scrolling on Instagram or grabbing another drink or grabbing another cigarette or whatever it is that that you're doing to not have to think. So that's a really big piece of it. It is hard. Any new habit is hard that doesn't give you that instant gratification.
Exactly.
So something I say to people, because again, this comes up a lot. I journaled for 3 nights in a row and then I skipped 2 nights, so I failed. So it's another thing that I failed at and I can't journal. Doesn't work.
Totally, yeah.
So I think telling yourself to journal, of course, journaling every night, meditating every night, like amazing, good for you. But we're all human and we can't do it. Like I said, I'm excited to someday start meditating again, but I'm still in that phase of getting myself back into that. So be kind with yourself. But if you can say, you know what, I really want to journal a few times this week, be vague about it or as often as I think of it and giving yourself some space around it to start, especially. It might become more habit driven and you just pick up your journal at the end of the day and write down what you're thinking. But you can make it kind of romanticize it, right? Like make it this cozy environment, give yourself some candles and a cozy blanket or a sweatshirt that you love. And sip on some warm tea, engage all of your senses and a pen that you love and a cute little notebook and find some prompts online. I have a couple blog posts with some different journaling prompts, but you can find like whatever you're struggling with. You can Google it and find some journal prompts. You can also just free write, like here's what I'm struggling with. But giving yourself that space to make it cozy can really make it feel like indulgent self-care, not just like, prescribed by your therapist self-care.
No, absolutely. So do you find that the prompts are better for most people unless they're like all about the free writing that, find a prompt and just focus on that?
In terms of like what's better for your mental health, I don't think it makes a difference. I think whatever feels better for you is where you should go. A lot of people like having the prompts because they sit there with their pen for 10 minutes and I don't know. A lot of people tell me they end up writing down their to-do list, which is not super helpful. It could be helpful, but it's a different thing, right? So if you find yourself thinking like, all I can think about is that I have 5 errands I need to run tomorrow in between work meetings, then yeah, find a prompt because that's just going to help you focus on, okay, what am I struggling with? Like why, just like we talked about with taking that pause before drinking. What do I need to fill my emotional cup right now? Even that could be a journal prompt and giving yourself that space to look at what's lacking in my relationships or in my sense of self-worth or how I feel about myself, and being able to have that can just help people hone in and feel less pressure to figure it out on their own.
Yes. And obviously doing like the brain dump right before bed is, I'm guessing, probably the most beneficial for most people, but does the time actually matter or not necessarily?
No, I think you have to pay attention to yourself. I use that example of right before bed because that, when I think of that cozy environment, like that's what's always felt best for me. And for a lot of people, to your point, that brain dump, like gets it out of your head right before bed. For some people, I've had the feedback that feels terrible because then it's all right there. It's all they can think about going to bed. So I say, okay, do not journal before bed then. You find what's best for you. It might be morning. I have a client right now who journals. She takes a little lunch break and brings her journal with her and jots down. She spends 10 minutes journaling. Not every day because she doesn't think of it every day, but when she does, she does that, and it helps her know that she'll be able to move through the day and not be ruminating over it. She doesn't have to think about it as soon as she gets up. But yeah, I think that sometimes it can be trial and error and being willing to be flexible with it and figure out when the best time is for you.
Yes. Well, and just taking that break, it kind of goes back to what we've been, beating the dead horse on, in the sense that it's making it a mindful experience and being intentional about it. And it doesn't have to be you're sitting down for an hour. I know for me, doing it before bed is typically the most helpful. I sleep better, but when I get into bed, the last thing I want to do is I think of Jimmy Fallon, with his notes, but it's so crazy to me. And we work with people, you and I both, dealing with this all day, every day. But it's why is doing something that makes us feel better so much harder to do, but doing, things that we're trying to break those habits, it's just so easy. And obviously that's the power of habits and, the brain chemistry and all of that. But it's just how is it so difficult to make the decision that I want to make, yet so easy to do what I'm trying not to do?
It is so frustrating, isn't it? That there's this obvious path that is going to help you build the life that you want to live and take care of yourself. And it is so much easier to go towards this flickering light that is temptation and struggle.
Yes.
And I mean, a lot of it, I think I've said this a few times now, but a lot of it is brain chemicals. And I think that's so important to recognize the brain chemistry behind it, because it's not your fault. You're not broken. And again, whether it's alcohol or something else, we all have these struggles. None of us are choosing the quote unquote right path every time, the things that are really going to help us. It is a great idea to do and it'll help you. But I think having that awareness that, especially if you've been drinking consistently for a long time, your brain isn't making as much dopamine, which is a chemical that helps you feel calm, relaxed, happy on its own, as it was pre-drinking. And so you're craving that alcohol because of habit. You're craving it because you've had a long day, because you need a way to end the day, or a way to say, don't bother me. But also because your brain has no dopamine in it, or very little dopamine in it. And your body is saying to you, your brain is saying to you, hey, you know what's going to make you feel happy real quick? This alcohol. And that's true again for shopping or gambling. It has the same effect. Or Instagram scrolling, it gives you that boost of dopamine. So knowing that journaling is not going to give you that boost of dopamine is actually important, right? Because it helps you notice that taking that path isn't going to give you that same sense of finally the day's over. But over time, it is. It's going to help your brain start to produce dopamine on its own, because you're taking care of yourself, you're doing the reflection, you're focusing on yourself, you're looking at patterns. And so your brain is starting to heal, especially as you reduce the alcohol that you're drinking and you're starting to drink at a more healthy level. So it does take time. And hopefully that can give some people some hope that you're not alone, that this is a struggle, but your brain is healing the more that you're choosing these positive, healthy coping tools.
Yes.
Healthy and slow coping tools.
Exactly. Well, and all of this is a practice. Like mindfulness, they literally call it a practice. Journaling, practice.
Definitely.
I say that drinking, we've practiced and we've gotten really, really good at drinking. Now we have to practice something else, so it's just when you wrap your mind around that, there's not, a winning or losing, pass or fail. It's more just how am I doing today?
Exactly. Absolutely. And you know what? I'll come back to toothbrushing again, or washing your face.
I love this. Yeah.
But you do it automatically, right? You get to the end of the day, and a lot of us wash our face and brush our teeth, and we're exhausted, and we don't really want to do it, but we're not really thinking about it. It's just part of the habit, right? And that's what journaling and meditation can be for you. This space where you say, okay, I know this is something I have to do to take care of myself. I don't have a lot of time. Maybe I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes, or I'm going to journal for 5 minutes. But it starts to become more of a habit, just like alcohol has over time.
Well, and as you're decreasing, especially focusing on dopamine, if you're decreasing dopamine in other areas, it's going to be that much more beneficial when you're getting lower doses for things that are, really good for your emotional health, your nervous system, all of that, that's going to start building up and your body will start craving that more.
Yeah, absolutely. It really will, especially when you make it that kind of cozy, peaceful experience for yourself and you start to notice,
Yeah.
which can be hard on its own to notice these
Yeah.
positive changes because they don't happen so quickly. But if you can pay attention
Exactly.
to that, okay, I feel a little bit more peaceful with myself, or my inner critic is a little less loud over the last month, and I've been practicing meditation or practicing journaling for about 2 months, then you can start to build that connection, and that can help you feel like awareness that this is helpful, that it's
Yeah.
worth doing.
Totally. And I think that using this throughout the day. So if it is too much to like just sit down and do all that in the evening or, at one time a day, like maybe do a couple minutes of breathing in the morning or at lunch and then do writing before you get the kids or, whatever it looks like, because I've definitely noticed just as a, mom with young kids, it is so go, go, go all the time that I'm not always present doing it. Plenty of times where I've driven and I'm like, I don't even remember the full drive here, like when did that car he was behind me and like, where is he now? Like, so
Absolutely.
trying to be more mindful throughout the day. And where I've definitely noticed this, my daughter recently came home and her best friend and her family, I think it's a daily thing that they do, but they do poopsicle, popsicle, and dreamsicle. So the poopsicle is whatever bad happened or, whatever you didn't like that day. The popsicle is a good thing that happened to you that day. And then dreamsicle is just like a dream that you have or a wish for the future or something. And we've started trying to do this a little bit more. And it is crazy how many days I'm like, I'm like, you just have to answer one, for 3 and 5, I'll just turned 6. That can be a lot of questions to answer, but I'm like, if I'm not present throughout the day, I can't even answer these questions, so it's like,
what did I do today?
Exactly. So it's been a really good reminder for me, not just to slow down, but to be intentional, like wherever I am, be in that moment.
Yes, absolutely. And it is so hard to do. Again, whatever stage of life you're at with young kids, I just constantly shocked as this is a newer baby.
You're in the thick of it.
Yeah, how busy life is. But before that, right? Like if you're commuting to work, if you have a taxing job, if you have family or extended family or children or friends that are asking a lot of you, it can feel so hard to think about, like, what did I do if they're asking you? It can be so hard to think about yourself, to take that break, to pause, no matter, what it is that's pulling your attention. It can even be hard to think about what was pulling your attention throughout the day. So I love that poopsicle, popsicle, dreamsicle. That's so funny.
It's cute.
Because it also helps you, like, as you get used to it, starting to think about, like, oh, this could be my poopsicle. This sucked.
Exactly. Yeah.
And kind of give you that moment of mindfulness, or even sort of a positive twist on it. Like, oh, I can tell this to my family. And by the time I get there this evening, maybe it'll be funny.
Well, and it's been really helpful because my daughter she's not an open book like I am, which is just insane to me. But, that's why I'm like, you can pick one, you decide which one it is, but it's a way for us to talk. And ever since I've done, like, you just have to do one, I can tell she like wants to do more. And then she's like, but then this happened and then this. I'm just like, okay, let's keep it going. So it's been very helpful with that. So, if you need a journaling prompt, maybe do your poopsicle, popsicle, and dreamsicle.
I love that as a new journal prompt. Such a great place to start. Like, just think about your day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything that we did not touch on that you wanted to cover or anything along those lines? I know sometimes I'm like, oh, I wanted to talk about that, but I forgot. So I want to make sure I ask.
Yeah, I feel like we talked a lot about mindfulness, some positive coping tools. Being kind with yourself would be like a big takeaway that I would want people to take with them. Like, all of this is hard. Changing habits, changing patterns of behavior is hard. And it's a lot harder than just changing your behavior. And I think when you're expecting yourself to do that, like, just stop or just change this, that's where we run into so many problems because it goes so much deeper than that. And so I'll reiterate the dopamine, like, there's things happening that we can't see in your brain there's the way that you talk to yourself is really impacting the way that you show up in the world and the habits that you're choosing day to day. And so building that awareness can be so important for being able to make that positive change in your life, and just be patient with the process and with yourself and compassionate to yourself, and seek help, because it is really hard to do on your own. Find some support.
Regardless of what it is what issue you're facing, like having help is going to be the best decision ever.
Absolutely. Because if you are drinking more than you want, which you probably are or have if you're listening to this podcast, that is a coping tool for something. There's a reason that that's happening, and it's not your fault and you're not doing anything wrong. But in order to be able to figure that out, having somebody that can help you kind of process that and dig in is going to make a really big difference.
Yes. And I love that you brought up essentially the internal dialogue, because I am very big on BYOB, be your own bestie, especially as women. I feel like we will build each other up all day long. Like in the coaching calls that I do, all it is like people are seeing the wins out of everyone's story, even if they're sharing like, well, this wasn't a very good day. They're seeing the wins in each other, but in ourselves, all we see is the negative. So that internal dialogue is so imperative. But until you can get that to a healthy place, channel your best friend. And either what would you say to your best friend, or what would your best friend say to you in that situation?
Yeah, absolutely. And I could talk for another hour on your inner critic and where that's coming from, and how that is not your fault either, and how that has been derived from so many voices and messages that you've gotten from your childhood. But yes, mindfulness.
Episode 2, we will come back to that, because I would love to get you for another hour on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fun. But yes, the same takeaways, right? Like, be kind to yourself. It takes a while to change, but the more present you can be and the more kind but realistic you can be in changing that. Don't cheer yourself to the point where you're saying you're, a beauty queen if you really don't believe that. But maybe you can be a little less mean to yourself. Maybe you can say, like, I'm just as good as everyone else for right now. And that's going to help you feel more positive about yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I'm very big, and we're all perfectly imperfect. Like, we're exactly who we are, where we're supposed to be. It's just, are we trying to be better each day? And that doesn't mean we are better each day, but we at least, are trying to work on ourselves and become better in, some area. To me is the most important thing. But just the perfect reminder, like, literally the only person you will spend your life with is yourself. So you need to have that be someone that you enjoy.
Absolutely. So true. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you. How can people find you? Share anything that we can about you, even though I know you are in Denver. Do you do virtually, anything along those lines?
Yeah, I do virtual. I work with people all throughout Colorado. My license covers all of Colorado. You can find me on AmandaBrownCounseling.com. My website, or that's my website. My email is Amanda@AmandaBrownCounseling.com. So either of those work if you just want to reach out, or all my contact is on my website. Pretty easy to find me. And I would love to hear from anyone that has questions or wants to follow up or interested in counseling.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate your time. Just so grateful for all the lives you've touched and everything you've been doing, everything you're currently doing. And it's been a joy getting to know you and chatting with you today. So
yeah, you too. I had a great time. Thank you so much.
Okay, before you guys go, if you are tired of the hangovers, the guilt, shame, regret, or maybe you're just thinking about alcohol way too much, ShameOver can help. I will teach you how to drink less, feel better, and actually enjoy life without the shame spiral. If you're interested, go to shameover.me and learn more, and hopefully you'll start today. Cheers to that. ShameOver is the mindful drinking program designed for women who desire to drink less without losing the booze completely. If you want to transform your relationship with alcohol and live a healthier, confident, and balanced life, go to shameover.me and get started today. You deserve it, you're worth it, your future self thanks you. Cheers.